For this podcast, the idea is talking about the topics of lean, agile, building our teams, growing healthy teams, companies. So this is not really about the product, but what's the journey? What's the... All right, I'm excited today. I am on with Steve here, and we are kicking off the TopLeft podcast. It's been on my mind to get this going for a while, and today is episode 1. So I'll just introduce myself and Steve. So I'm the founder of TopLeft, as well as 2 MSPs here in Canada, Kerkhoff Technologies and Crafty Penguins, which I started 15 years ago. So for this podcast, the idea is talking about the topics of lean, agile, building our teams, growing healthy teams, companies. So this is not really about the product, but what's the journey? What's this growing movement? What's this all about? The concepts, the methods behind it. What are we learning? Who are we talking to? Stories going on? Because we're on this journey with you. So Steve joined us about, is it 4.5 years ago, Steve?
Yep.
And got introduced through a mutual friend, and we had dinner and actually have a job posting. But I thought, hey, here's a great guy. Let's find a way to make it work and bring him on board. So he's now in a VP people role with all of my group of companies, and which has been huge to unlock growth. We've gone from, 11 people to 33 now in these few years, and just focus on leadership, team development, coaching, all those wonderful things. So it's been huge for me and my team. So welcome, Steve.
Yeah, Wim, thank you. I'm really happy to be part of this podcast. I think it's going to be hopefully an exciting way to grow the TopLeft community and to get people really interested in some of the things I know you're passionate about, which is kind of the growth of the whole person. And, you've developed a really cool software tool, but at the same time, there's a lot more depth to it than just the dashboard that we can see that the team of developers is putting out there. So I think I bring a unique take to kind of the journey that you talked about. I think there is the tool part that integrates with the PSA, but at the same time, it's all, like you said, it's about emotional health. It's about working in a way that puts people at ease. It's about engagement and motivation and teamwork. And so I'm really excited to grow this community with those things in mind and to share TopLeft with the world in that way.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I would love to start off, Wim. I think there's a lot of people that are going to be listening to this that they hear the words TopLeft and they don't really necessarily know what that means, or it's a growing brand, but I think there's a lot of value in you sharing the story of how this whole thing started. Because it's intriguing to me, and I think it'll be intriguing to people. So start from the beginning and talk about how you came up with the idea and how you've taken it to the level that it is now.
Well, this probably goes back 20 years. Did you realize that?
I didn't know 20 years.
Well, I just realized that because I got into the PMI ACP training, Project Management Institute, Agile Certified Practitioner training. I'm working through that now. And I realized how much I know from the software development work I did like 20 years ago as a young guy with pair programming, extreme programming. Before even, Kanban, Scrum was a big thing that was just starting 22 years ago. So that was an experience I had then as a junior developer, got into IT, started my business. And as I mentioned early on, started my own company 15 years ago. It's just me, and grew the team. And we actually had another company as well, which I sold in the meantime. And we were using the Scrum method for project management, and it worked great. Like, we started that. So Matt and I, who's still with us today, Matt Fox, team established the Scrum process there in Sprint, the retrospectives, daily huddles, using Jira, and we're getting great results in that team. And I'm like, how do I get that in the IT company? That good flow, everyone's in a good spot, doing their work every day, prioritize, get it done. So I looked at, hey, obviously Scrum won't quite work for IT help desk. You can't tell your customers to wait 2 weeks to wait for the next sprint. So I looked at it, I'm like, hey, there's Kanban. So researched that. I'm like, hey, all right. So it's basically Scrum without the time boxing. And could this work? So we did I worked with a service manager at the time. We did like proof of concept in Excel. We're like, hey, we like the visual format. And then got a programmer and a contractor working on an actual software version of that, which looks very different. That version 1 is very different than what we got today. And even what we have today will be changing in the coming months as we rebuild the interface. And just been a bit of the story. Yeah.
So what was the original like when we talk about startups and entrepreneurial ventures, there's always the question, what was the original problem? Like, what's the problem that you were trying to solve? So even we get clarity on what we're trying to do now, but back then, when you came up with this idea of moving from sticky notes on a wall to a user interface and to a dashboard and the stuff that it is now, what was the original problem that you wanted to solve?
Well, just all the tickets we had and like what to do next. Because you got recurring tickets and for managed service agreements, proactive tickets, help desk project. Everyone's kind of has to touch everything, different skill sets, mix of work, like 1,000 open tickets and this chaos. So like, how do we focus? Because we would start a ticket, go abandon it, go to another one, the squeaky wheels getting the grease. And when the client calls and, hey, Wim, what's up with this? So like, hey, all right, that one's on the top of the list today, this week, and jumping around. So it's hard to know. Just looking through our PSA, through a list of tickets, it's like, what do you sort by? Everyone has a different sort. Yeah, those sorts of things. Just couldn't see the bigger picture of the work and how to prioritize, how to communicate it to the team, what it should be, so they can stick to it until they manage that flow. So it's kind of, reducing overwhelm and the chaos.
That sounds amazing. And for us who we work in the product and on the company on a daily basis, those are things that I think are easy for us to understand and communicate. But sometimes for people who they don't think about these things as often as we do, it sometimes is hard to grasp, I'm overwhelmed, but I don't really know how to describe why I'm overwhelmed. So what you mentioned earlier in your intro, this movement, this idea of a movement that is becoming TopLeft, maybe talk about that side a little more, because the tool is powerful and we have people using it and giving us great feedback on that. But what's the deal with the movement part? Like, what are we trying to create there? And what's your vision for that?
I kind of realized that again recently when I'm going through this Agile training, that of the 13 hours on this Udemy course, 13 hours of Udemy videos, maybe 20 minutes is Kanban. And so it's not about the tool and the visualization. Like, hey, you need it, but it's about the people, the conversations we have, the roles. And even like with our AI, to be honest, like having the tool, it's been great, but sometimes it didn't really, I'm like, we have it, but we're not shifting the needle. Like we're still having lots of tickets. And that's where like, oh, you've been working on that in our MSPs, elevating the leaders, role clarity, not overwhelming people, making sure they got time in the day to watch these things, be clear on the expectations, the requirements, the performance, what are the metrics. It's maybe 10% tool and 90% the conversations, leadership, building real strong teams. And a tool alone doesn't build a team. And that's one of the Agile principles, is actually face-to-face conversations over contracts, over negotiation, over tools, over technology. So they go for low tech, high touch, it's called. So having people talk together, preferably in person, otherwise on Zoom, on Teams, on Slack, on chat, on the phone, over emailing and hiding behind reports and metrics. So, because we can get so caught up with creating tools and forget just to talk about, hey, what's going on, and give the feedback, like this was not acceptable or this was great. So that's been my learning journey through this. It's mostly about leadership, elevating people, and it's a servant leadership mindset as well, not command and control, top down micromanaging. And then the other part is, which really comes through in Lean, also in Agile, but the role of leadership and managers, and then the role of your frontline workers. So in manufacturing, you'd call it your shop floor employees. In our world, it's technicians and engineers, but we need both, and a high respect for each other, that to succeed, we need to take care of each other and be doing our roles. Yeah, it's a bit of the movement it's not just a tool and an integration, another dashboard, but it's the whole people side, the emotional intelligence, having the conversations, having people support each other, all those things.
The word that's come up a couple of times is the power of the conversation. And you know this, and for those that are listening to this podcast, it's conversations are good and we understand the power of them, but they take time, don't they? And when we're talking about being more efficient in our work and moving work from you open the ticket to close, and we want that to be as quick as possible, the thing that we continue to fight here with the MSPs that are in-house is this idea of, well, we don't have time for all these conversations. In other words, meetings. We want to trim down the number of meetings and make them as efficient as possible. And so we've been wrestling with the idea of How do we have those conversations that are necessary without taking more time than is necessary so that we can continue to do the work that's in front of us? And so what are your thoughts on that whole culture of shifting from lots of meetings to more having good, solid, efficient conversations, and so not losing that personal touch? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, absolutely. I've been kind of learning through that as well the last week. You've probably seen that we've iterated, experimented on so many things, right?
Yeah.
And I've definitely fallen in the trap of having the conversation in the wrong venue, the wrong meeting. So your 10-minute daily huddle is not where you solve your big business problems. It's really just your status update. Your weekly meeting could be longer, but it's got to have a specific agenda and go through those things. You got your monthlies, your quarterlies, your annuals. That's key. The coaching, the one-on-ones, there's certain things will not happen in a team meeting. You guys still going to have your one-on-one, having a relationship. But yeah, so many people have worked in environments where there's too many meetings or just low value. You're pushing the ball, you're just rolling the ball forward. You're using these expressions, but you're really just punting it to the next meeting. The recurring complaints, not solving anything. So we really focus on, like if you're watching the video of this on my back wall, I've got the Traction EOS book cover there. And one of their tools is IDS. So identify a problem, discuss it, solve it once for all, completely. So that you don't have to be troubleshooting it again next week or next month or next year. Having those conversations, getting them in the open, having the trust and the safety in the meeting. Safety in the team is really important, that we can provide feedback without fear of confrontation, that we can get to the bottom, and it's about making the team stronger, taking care of their clients, moving quicker. But yeah, we're just even looking at scheduling is having the time to jump on a one-on-one with somebody to solve something. Because the best time you're seeing it is now. Feedback has to be quick. You can't wait until their quarterly review or the annual review to say, hey, that ticket you were kind of slow on or you were sloppy. Well, they're like, it was 11 months ago. Like that's so disrespectful. Like, tell me today. It's much easier to fix something today than tomorrow when I've forgotten what I did the previous day. Yeah, still a work in progress for me, but I think we've made a lot of improvements in that area. I guess, what have you seen from in the last 4 years?
Well, I think it's a work in progress for each one of us, Wim, and it's hard for me because I enjoy meetings. Like I will, because I'm a people guy. I mean, there are other people guys in the company, but because I enjoy people, I actually enjoy meetings. And so I don't need too much of a reason to meet with someone, even if it's just for personal connection. But from an efficiency standpoint, the biggest thing for me that I've seen is the need for us to start and end meetings on time. And I think that's a really good starting place for people to have an efficient time, because there might be 1,000 things to solve. I'm exaggerating, but there might be 1,000 things to solve, but we only have a certain amount of time during the day. And so for us as leaders and managers, and for people listening, if we can just say, hey, you know what, there's one thing that I want to have a discussion on and get a decision on. Can I have 15 minutes? There's nothing wrong with a 15-minute meeting. And if you say it's going to be 15 minutes, then keep it to 15 minutes. Get on the Zoom or get in someone's office and just say, okay, here's what we need. Boom, 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 1, 2, 3. And then, oh, you know what? We're not yet done, but I want to honor you and respect your time. We're at the end of our 15 minutes, close it out, and then reschedule something later on. That's when I think what I've seen, at least, is we're starting to do that. So our meetings are shorter. They end on time, and I think people understand and respect that. And so they begin to show up to meetings with more energy because they know that their time is going to be honored. So I think that's the biggest shift that I think we've been trying to make as a group of companies.
Yeah.
And I think that's really paid some dividends in terms of people's just engagement and motivation. I'd love to hear, and I think it would be valuable for people to hear your thoughts on this, Wim, and it's the idea of dependence versus independence, because we have some people, and it's the culture. I wonder if it's a tech culture thing. You'd have to correct me on that if I'm wrong, Wim, but the idea of people being their best when they're just simply told what it is that they need to do. So as long as they have someone in a position of leadership or management that's like, okay, now do this, or next do this. Here's your next ticket, versus is the idea of TopLeft and Agile and Lean and that whole way of thinking and doing work. Is it better for someone to be more independent in that type of working environment? So the idea of dependence versus independence, what are your thoughts on that?
You can see that there's different styles and personalities, because I'm a big fan of those. You've got, I've seen that with some people, even with managers, is struggle because they're really high, but they're very organized, very structured, working solid, 9 to 5, high output. But if it's just a conversation or a vague email about, here's an idea, then they may struggle. They need a way to action it. Like, hey, what's the result of this meeting? Not just wandering everywhere and looking at things. So I think people need something to latch on, that they're clear on what's required, how much time it's going to take. It's not overwhelming. Whereas if it's not defined as this ambiguous blob, then in my mind, it might be an hour. In their mind, this is like 100 hours. So I literally had that. People really stressing out, literally not, huge repercussions. I didn't know, and they didn't come to me. So now it's more open door, and it's a conversation about that. The Agile concept is the team is more self-managing. So the team is more independent of, let's say, a project manager. So you have a Scrum master. The product owner doesn't need to be in there every day, but the team will estimate their work. We work with the product owner to say, hey, when is this going to be done? Like, the done when? It's done when, let's say it's monitored, it's backed up. Yeah, but whatever the criteria are. So the software development, it's done when we have these features. And it's assuming, we don't have to write it down, we're assuming that it's going to be checked in and it's compiled and passed tests. There's a bunch of just assumed things, table stakes. You don't have to spell that out as a task on the ticket, but the team will work together on that and be able to sit down and work through that. But it could be more, they're working together and collaborating. It depends on the work, but they're going to work together on estimating, realizing the risk, sharing notes. Because there's the idea of generalizing specialists. If everyone's on their own, that, hey, you got the firewall guy and all he knows is firewalls, and the server guy, all he does is servers, never talk, you got a problem. So they need to share some skills. Yes, somebody's still going to be better at one thing than the other. But the idea is of generalizing specialists, that if one person is busy on firewalls and there's more firewalls to do, somebody else from the server team could come in and help. And if everyone's just doing, what's a better analogy? Yeah, it's like if you're building a house and your plumber could put down his wrench and also pick up a hammer and help out on banging nails on the roof for the shingles, that's going to make your project go quicker. So if all you have is specialists, that's going to slow it down and you're going to have a bottleneck somewhere. So there's that going on. And then having that 5-minute, 10-minute conversation, even if you're interrupting somebody or just fitting it in, dealing with that right away could cut your delivery time by half or more on a project. Because if you kept plowing ahead and waited for your weekly meeting, you could have gone down 3 wrong routes, trial and error, made mistakes. Or worse is you launch it and then there's bugs because you didn't get the 5 minutes of input from a colleague.
Right. And one of the things I've learned over the years, Wim, is the conversation doesn't necessarily have to just simply be an exchange of information, but the conversation that's most powerful that I've found, as I've observed with our teams, is the conversation that starts with, I don't understand. And that's a really interesting nuance, because for most of us, we're prone to just want to figure it out. I don't really, we might say to ourselves internally, I don't understand, but I'm going to figure it out. And that's a good thing. Like, we want our people to have that attitude of solving problems and getting better and doing those types of things with their own initiative. But if they can just get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm going to stop and tell someone that I don't get it, and then get someone to come and make a correction or adjust the thinking or set those clear expectations, and then that's going to save a ton of time as well. So the difference between that, the I don't get it conversation that can rally people from a team perspective versus the conversation that's just simply an information exchange, it can be a pretty powerful difference as well.
Yeah, that goes both ways. There's asking for help or being empty, or, hey, I'm not clear, get clarity. And that's both ways, on that's a delegation thing of the person being delegated to should take responsibility and ownership of that. But also from the person doing the delegating, they're going to make sure the person understands it, check in, how's it going? Are they on track? Some people don't know when they're stuck and they're digging a deep hole. That's what I've seen.
Right.
We can't just assume that they're going to figure it out and ask for help because they're off track. They're just oblivious to it. So that's where, leadership and management come in as well. We can't just abdicate that responsibility.
One of the things that we talk about a lot around here, Wim, is You touched on this early on, but I want to revisit it and get your thoughts on a more detailed level. The difference between TopLeft as the tool, the dashboard that people like see to visualize their work. I think that's pretty clear. One of the things that we're asking people to do, I think, is to adjust their mindset and to work in a different way. And so that's like adopting the Agile and the lean practices. Talk about how much of a jump that is in your mind and in your experience, because you've been steeped in that for a number of years now. And I think it's safe to say that you get it, you understand it. But how much of a leap is it for people that might not be familiar with those Agile and lean concepts to actually adopt those as part of their way of working, in addition to using the TopLeft tool?
There's definitely been some misconceptions in there. And this is what I've seen is we've had clients where they're like, hey, love the lean, the Kanban, doing a pull-based flow instead of push. Let's not have a dispatcher scheduling. Let's have the techs pull tickets. And it was a disaster when they moved too quickly to do that. And it's actually breaking that's against the fundamentals of lean and agile. So if you look at those 5 principles of Kanban, and the first one is just visualize what you're doing. No changes. Just visualize your current workflow, see the bigger picture, see the bottleneck, see the breakdowns, visualize the chaos. And then from there, you make small changes, test it, get the feedback from the team, get ideas from the team on how to better visualize it, improve that flow, small steps. Like I've been watching these, there's a website from a guy called Paul Aker, and he's a book called The 2-Minute Lean. And he's got all these videos looking at shop floor environments. And so every year he does this compilation from his company called FastCap. I can't remember what they manufacture, some widget. And they've got people on the shop floor showing the improvements they've made. It's like these 1-2 minute clips. And sometimes it's just about their packaging material and something to help, let's say, align your boxes so that you can wrap them quickly. So just the small jigs, just small things that maybe it took them 2 hours to put that little wood frame in place, but it's going to save them maybe 10 minutes every day. And they're not going to get a sore back because they're not leaning over. So it's reducing waste, reducing steps, extra motion. It's the small things. So it's not about moving all your equipment around on the shop floor to be more optimized. It can be small things. So you got to start with understanding what's going on before you get to big changes. So that's where we've seen people just move it too quick, and then they actually had to pull it out completely, go back to where they were, because people are rebelling or clients were impacted. A lot of stress. So you got to understand what's going on. Small changes, move ahead, test it, look at the numbers, and then optimize for the bigger picture. It's not just looking at these couple tickets, but what matters in the bigger picture of things. If looking at all the work you do in a month with 5, 10, 20 people, what has the biggest impact? So there's a few things going on there. And some of these things in our early training, teaching we did like 3-4 years ago, we emphasized too much certain things. That was actually anti-lean. So now let's go back to what does lean say, visualize it, continuous improvement, respect for people, involve them. It's not top down, here's your new way of working. It's more like, hey, here's how your work is flowing, guys and gals. Here's the kind of silly things going on you may not have realized. What would it look like to improve this a little bit? What has to happen now that you see it this way? There's a bottleneck on this tool, this software, this particular person. And it's like the Brent in the Phoenix Project book. That's the one I've got. I got my fingers on the wrong side here, but behind me, which is a book we highly recommend, a novel about IT and DevOps and improving flow. So I highly recommend it. It's on Audible, paperback. We give it to our people to read as well. And there's a guy called Brent in the book, and he's the bottleneck. He's been there for 10 plus years, knows all these systems, even though he's not assigned up projects. People are going to, there's like a SAN upgrade, network upgrade, a firewall, deploying code, Linux, Windows. They're going to Brent to pick his brain. But as a result, too many things are waiting on Brent. And once they started to visualize it, they knew what had to happen.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's, as we wrap this up, the plan is Steve and I will be co-hosting this podcast. So we'll do some together like this, some with a guest, do a fireside chat or whatever it might be about. And then we may do some individually as well. So we'll see how that goes depending on our busy schedules as well. Topics, I would love to bring in clients to share their story. Where are they at on this journey? So if you're interested, drop a note. We'll bring in speakers, authors, maybe vendors. It's not about pushing tools, but inspiring, educating, and so on. We're on the journey with you, sharing our stories. We're learning. We're making mistakes too. We're going through training, as I mentioned, getting into PMI. Yeah, if these are useful, drop a note. That's always encouraging. Connect on LinkedIn, drop a note there. Yeah. So any other thoughts there, Steve, to wrap this up for us?
No, I thought this was a great intro, and I really, like you just did, I want to echo what you said and invite people to engage with us. If you have questions or comments about anything that we've said, or if you want to get in touch about the tool, we're more than willing to listen and have a conversation with you. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for future episodes. That's for sure.
All right. Thanks, Steve. This was fun. So I'll see you next week.
All right. Sounds good, Wim. Thanks.